Okay, so we only have 19 more hours before Yun Chuan's banner goes away, so let me just answer this very important question and not here, Atlas. So a very important question is, if let's say I want to R2 one of these Espers and I only have the limited amount of resources for either of these two Espers, we have Yun Chuan or we have Intisar, who should it be? So this is my opinion after using both of them at R2 to quite an extensive amount, and from the way it looks like it, right? Let's take a look at what Yun Chuan does at R2. So over here, when enemies with Third Eye Seal are attacked, summon Screamer to launch an assist attack, which means that he will then allow all of your allies to summon his dog as well, which is a very big deal because the dog does a lot of stuff. So the dog ignores defense, the dog also steals a buff from the target, he also lands Seer, and on top of all of that, you can also run the dog on Zeus set, and he is also going to land stuns. So in terms of Yun Chuan's R2, it is almost a necessity for him to have R2, and not only is he really good in Fafnir, not only is he the best Esper right now for Sentinel Hunt, he is also an incredibly powerful Esper for the Infinity Tower as well. Be it Temporal Tower, Infinity Tower, Spatial Tower, whatever it is, he is enough DPS for you to clear the entire Infinity Tower without breaking a sweat whatsoever. As long as you have Espers who are able to take more turns to use his dog to attack on their behalf, then all of your Espers would have some kind of damage output. It's very similar to Ashley, but I do feel like Yun Chuan is possibly a lot stronger as well in many of these cases. So Yun Chuan at R2 is also a very big powerhouse in PvP, especially in Point War. I do use him in my auto Point War team, and yes, it does take a little bit longer, and yes, you do need certain Espers as well in order for this team to work. So if you do not have Espers like Tricky, you don't have Espers like Abigail, it might not be so easy for you to make it work, because after all, he is going to pop very quickly in Point War if you do not have him control. And you also need Espers like Anesidora just to proc her damage over time, which would then trigger the dog to attack even more. So in most cases, I do feel like Yun Chuan at R2 is incredibly powerful. Now let's talk a little bit about Intisar instead. So here we have Intisar, right? And her R2 effect is basically this. So when without stealth, you would launch a pursuit attack with your third skill. Now the reason why this is so good is because you would then have one additional third skill attack for free, right? Basically free. Now the thing is, in most cases, when you use this skill to abuse your R2, you need to be without stealth. So what that means is you need to use your third skill first, then move on to your second skill, and then move on to your first skill, and then use your first skill one more time in order for her to trigger her R2 effect. So there are 4 turns necessary for her to trigger her R2 effect, which also means that she is not immediately useful at R2. Or what I mean to say is that her R2 is not immediately useful. It's not the same as Yun Chuan where he just needs to throw his debuff once, and all your allies are just going to follow up afterwards. So in terms of R2, I don't feel like she is really that broken anyway. And even if you watch my previous video and you realize that yes, we can abuse her without stealth by leaving her alone as a sole Esper, that comes with a big price as well, because now she is alone. You might want to build with Hades so that she can sustain herself, but in most cases she's gonna get nuked super easily as well. And apart from just being a meme Esper, having an extra third skill is not going to break her entirely. I don't even think it's going to break her at all. Because yes, you are going to land more defense breaks here. You are going to land more attack down as well. But what's the big deal about that? There is no big deal at all. Even the true damage portion, I wouldn't say that it's going to be like super game breaking that she throws an extra third skill 40% of the time that she takes a turn. I don't think it is necessarily that game breaking. So a lot of people have been saying that she's one of those Espers that, oh, Lilith Games made her an R2 necessity. I don't really think so. I don't really think that this is the case for Intisar. She is a little bit more fun at R2, but it doesn't change the fact that her kit is already solid at R0. So I do feel like she is probably an Esper that is not important to R2, but it is quite important to get at least one copy of her if you have the Wish Stones. So as long as you can get one copy of her, she's going to perform her role to farm Chronos pretty efficiently, and I'm quite excited to test her out as well. But in terms of chasing for R2, I'm kind of happy that I got her at R2 in the testing server, so that I personally will not use my Wish Stones to get her R2 in my main account. But this is just my own personal take on her kit, and my own personal take on who you should R2. And for me, personally, I do feel like Yun Chuan takes the cake because he is incredibly powerful and he unlocks a whole new realm of gameplay at R2 as opposed to his R0 state, which is not the same as Intisar. But of course, a lot of you guys are very clever, right? A lot of you guys are very smart, and you also realize that, hey, the next Esper that they're going to release is probably going to be an APEP Esper. So this is my opinion about what might come, which is possibly an APEP Esper. So between Yun Chuan, between Intisar, and let's say an APEP Esper, who do I think is probably like the most important? So the thing is, if you're not able to do APEP, and you're able to do both Fafnir and Chronos right now, then yes, surely an APEP Esper is probably like the main thing, right? Because if you can do K16, you can do F16, you honestly do not need Intisar and Yun Chuan at all. Yun Chuan is probably a really good pick if you want him to be used in some of the other content. But in terms of Fafnir, he's not like the be all and all, right? But the thing is, if you're not even able to clear any of the K16s, F16s, A16s, I might suggest that you actually go for Intisar as your first pick, if that is your only option. And the reason for that is I feel like Chronos relics are still kind of like the best in the game, followed by Fafnir, and then lastly APEP. I do feel like the relics that you can get from APEP, while good on certain aspects, like I say, you have a height, right? Yes, Hades, Avatara, very good for height. But in most other aspects and in most other content like Desolate Lands, Temporal Tower, PvP, all of that, you do not necessarily need Ocean Waves, you do not necessarily need Avatara because these are all RNG based relics. You do not necessarily need Hades as well because you need to have more stats as opposed to having like maybe lifesteal in most cases, unless you're talking about height. So in my opinion, I do feel like APEP drops the shittiest relics. It's not really shitty relics, but as comparison to both Chronos and Fafnir, it does drop relatively weaker relics. So this is just my take on this. Hopefully this answered some of your questions. And if you have any other questions, leave them down in the comment section below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's content. If you did, don't click the thumbs up, it really helps the channel, and subscribe for more Dislyte content. Now with that said, this has been Derek Free to Play, and as always, I will see you in the next video.